Welcome to Amce Tales. I'm your ever egotistical host, Colby Trax. And this week, we are on to our final story of Metamorphosis. This week, we have I, Zombie by Christopher Munroe. I, Zombie is a lovely little tale of someone who changed, remembering their change, and not liking it one bit. It's the story of what happens when you think you are unique, when you can't do what you really should do, because it's hard, it's painful, and most importantly, it means you are probably, most likely, actually, definitely going to die. It's the fear of death which can cause more damage than simply accepting that you are going to die. It's the voice which says, I'm special. There will be a cure. There always is. Because that's how we've seen it played out in a million science fiction novels, doctors' shows, and passion plays. We will survive. We have always survived because we are the heroes. We are the ones the story is about. But we missed the point. The very important point. That no one is writing this. No one is narrating this. This is not a story. This is real freaking life. And what we all damn well know for sure is that no one gets out alive. And if we did, how would we feel about it? No, not survive. Just get out of it. Not dead, but undead. That is what I, Zombie is about. There is a miracle cure. All you have to do is die. And then you can't die anymore. No matter how much you want to. Oh, okay, well, that was kind of dark. Let's lighten this up by talking about the author. Christopher Munroe is an author, actor, comedian from Calgary, Alberta. His fiction has appeared on The Dunesteef, Way of the Buffalo, and Journey Into podcasts, as well as numerous other places around the web. His debut novel, Broken Escalator, is available in ebook from all the normal places, Smashwords and Barnes & Noble, to name a few. You can also hear it in audiobook format from audiobooks.com. You should do it. He did a wonderful bit of work. Besides, I wrote the soundtrack. I didn't really write it. I made it up by putting some stuff together that made noises. And to be honest, you're soaking in it right now. That's the bit of music behind is actually the soundtrack to Broken Escalator. But if you want to hear it a little bit cleaner and without me talking over the top of it, you can go over to audiobooks.com and hunt for Broken Escalator. It's a beautiful story. And actually, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Munroe later this week for the Acme Chatter podcast. So if you want to get more into his mind, the sickness that is Christopher Munroe, or as we like to call him, Muncie on Twitter, then come back for that. But anyway, I should get back to not plugging myself quite as much as I am doing. But anyway, Chris likes words and ideas, and occasionally has trouble seeing the difference between horror and comedy, which has led to unexpectedly amusing stories and absolutely terrifying stand-up sets. Well, that's enough jabber for now. I think it's time you sat down, quit hitting your siblings, and relaxed. And if you give me half a moment, I'll tell you a story. And stop almost touching everyone. It's really annoying. I, Zombie by Christopher Munroe. You misunderstood us on a fundamental level. You always have. We know that, though you don't seem to. But everyone misunderstood us, still misunderstands us, so there's no reason for you to feel in any way deficient due to this failing of yours. It's a constant, an innate trait shared by all humanity. When we first rose, you panicked, which is both natural and inevitable. I was one of you back then, and as such I know exactly how you felt. How could I not? I felt the same way. The dead were returning, rotting, shambling corpses with no desire other than to feed on the flesh of the living suddenly roamed the land. Of course you panicked. We all panicked. What else could we have done? In those first few days after the dead returned, when it still wasn't too late to mitigate the damage brought upon us by the crisis, we instead washed the world in panic, turning on one another with a ferocity unmatched in human history. We laid blame, slaughtered one another, fled our cities, and squandered our defenses on crowd control and petty grudges rather than facing the very real threat to humanity's survival that lay before us. We couldn't face it, so we didn't. And by the time we fully understood the folly of our actions, it was too late. With every desperate fleeing person trampled in the mad, rushed exodus from a city, with every soldier or civilian killed in one of the wars the death throes of civilization brought with it, the army massed against us grew in numbers, and our own numbers dwindled. By the time we were ready to face the crisis head on, it was already too late. There was nothing we could do. We were too scattered, too disorganized. There were too few of us surviving to stand against the tide of ravenous dead. So we hid. We hid from the dead, and we hid from one another, imagining that scavengers and looters might take away what little we had left. Imagining that there even were looters in this new world the dead had built for us to live in. We found places we believed we could fortify, or we traveled light enough to be able to run should the need arise, and we hid. We thought this might protect us. My group did okay. We lasted longer than most, I think. By the time I was bitten by a corpse that had been torn in half by some misfortune or other, and then crawled under the cash register desk of the small-town general store I was scavenging supplies from, we hadn't seen another group in weeks. Everyone else was either dead or just as paranoid about their fellow survivors as we were, and chose not to make their presence known. Which, again, makes perfect sense. After all, new people can't be vouched for. Nobody knows where new people might have been since mankind's fall, or what they might have been doing. They could be infected, a time bomb waiting to go off. Sure, they'll say they're clean, but desperate people say anything to gain a few more precious hours of life. They're probably safe, and they'll definitely claim they are, but the nagging doubt will always remain. Because they could be lying, both to themselves and to anyone willing to listen. I should know. I certainly was. I managed to keep up the pretense that everything was fine for 3 days before finally locking myself in the manager's office of the converted Costco warehouse we were using as a fortified encampment. I was shaking and sweating constantly by that point. My skin was pale and waxy. I knew I didn't have long left, but I was still unwilling to relinquish my hold on life, still half believing that my case would be somehow different than that of the billions who'd come before me, that I'd be the one who fought off the disease before it claimed me. I clung to my delusions, even as my friends banged on the office door, begging me to open up, to let them humanely cave my skull in with a crowbar so as to conserve ammunition, or at least to surrender my rifle back to them, as I wouldn't be needing it once I turned. I did no such thing. I still needed my rifle. in case I pulled through. They didn't know I wouldn't pull through. Not for certain. Just because nobody we knew had survived the infection, that didn't mean there were no survivors. We just hadn't met them yet, or seen them, or heard anything about them, or met anyone who had. But no disease kills 100% of its sufferers, and even if the percentage that survived this one was minuscule, they couldn't know for sure that I wouldn't be among the lucky few. I tried to explain this to them, but they either couldn't or wouldn't appreciate the wisdom of my carefully constructed arguments. The fact that by then my tongue had swollen to the point that the simple act of speech was nearly impossible may have contributed somewhat to their reaction. Still, when I put a bullet into the door as they were trying to break in, they got my meaning clear enough. They abandoned the Costco a few hours later. It had only ever been meant as a temporary refuge anyway. I suppose this was for the best. As it turned out, I was not among the tiny, lucky, entirely hypothetical percentage, but rather the overwhelming, unlucky one, which died, then rose, then slouched forward, searching for living human beings to consume. And from the time I got out of the office, about 3 weeks after my death, that's what I've been doing. Searching, wandering, seeking any man or woman with a heartbeat to sate myself upon. Until today, I'd not found any. As I said, my group lasted longer than most after the fall, and there aren't many living people left. But that's okay. I can be very patient when I need to be, and at any rate, it's not as though I'm hungry. That's the part you misunderstand, you see. We aren't trying to satisfy our terrible hunger, and we aren't hungry for the taste of human flesh. How could we be? We're dead, and the dead know no hunger. We aren't capable of metabolizing meat. We don't require the nutritions or the protein. We can't even taste what's put in our mouths. I'm not even sure I can properly remember food. And the concept of eating, either for pleasure or sustenance, now seems bizarre to me. Which you could, had you stopped to consider it seriously at any point, have been able to figure out on your own. We're dead. Dead flesh hangs from our bones, rotting before your eyes. We don't heal from wounds. If you prick us, we do not bleed. How on earth would we transport necessary nutrients from that which we consume to the parts of our bodies that need them? How, looking at us and seeing an animated but clearly very dead body, could you possibly believe that words like eating or hunger could reasonably apply? But you do. It's the only reference point you know, I suppose, and the very instinct that led to the collapse of Western civilization and near extinction of humanity. Even knowing us as you now do, after all you've been through, you insist on speaking of us in human terms, as though we are simply different, but still functioning things with different, but still functioning metabolisms, which is ridiculous. We're beyond that, simultaneously above and beneath it. It simply no longer applies in our case. I could happily go on until the last of the flesh dropped from my bones without ever eating another bite. and I'd barely notice the difference. There'd be no craving, no hunger. I would simply be, and be happy to do so, because hunger has never been what this was about. We don't eat the living because we're hungry. We hate you. We hate your still warm bodies and your still beating hearts. We hate how you can glide so effortlessly across the room, propelled by unspoiled limbs, commanded by still fully functioning brains as you go. We hate your life, your vitality, because we so vividly remember. We remember what it was like to be alive, how strong and pure we were. And we profoundly regret never having taken the time to appreciate what we had. With every lurching, stumbling step we now take, we remember our deaths, how small and frightened and helpless we felt, and how we would have given anything for a few more minutes, for a few more seconds, for one more breath. And we remember how, before we were bitten, we'd allowed pointless, trivial minutia to weigh us down, draw our focus, and prevent us from really understanding the value of what we had, of life. We hate you because we see ourselves in you, and we hate the injustice of it. That you still enjoy your warm, living flesh, might still take some measure of comfort in every breath, your functioning lungs, when all such comfort has been stripped from us forever. I've done nothing to deserve this existence. Nothing. I'm a good person, or at least used to be. We were all good people, and some random, cruel twist of fate stripped us of everything, of our lives, and even of rest once our lives were done, while you go on enjoying all that we lost. Of course we hate you. If you could see yourselves as we do, you'd hate you too. And the hate is a power all of its own. It's as clean as life. Not as simple. It's not as he can serve if called upon. It can compel you, even when there's very little of you left to propel. Hate keeps us moving. Hate, and, if I have to be honest, fear. Because some small part of me still is that little frightened man barricaded inside that Costco office, hoping beyond hope that my case might somehow be different. I still hope that, on some level, I'm too afraid not to. It's a combination, then, of emotions that keeps my corpse upright. Fear prevents me from lying down and accepting that this truly is the end for me, and hate keeps me focused on you. When I followed your convoy through town, it was my hate that gave my legs the strength they needed to keep up with you. You weren't driving fast, but you went far enough that living legs would have tired before you stopped. When you stopped at the same mom and pop store where I was bitten, it was hate that let me step over the corpse that had bitten me a lifetime ago without a thought, in my search of my real prey. I could have stopped to take revenge, but what would the point have been? It only would have alerted you to my presence, and we were both already dead, so it seemed petulant to hold a grudge. It was hate that led me to follow you when you split off from your group to explore the battery aisle and, once you were out of earshot, to take a bite out of your arm before you manage to push me away and lock yourself in the store's public restroom. You think I'm waiting for you to come out so I can sate my hunger with your succulent flesh. Were I hungry, I probably would. But as I said, I'm beyond hunger now, and I need no flesh. No, I'm not waiting for you to come out. I know you'll never open that door as long as I'm here. I felt the same fear when I realized I was infected. My mind raced as I desperately tried to think my way out of the impossible position I'd suddenly found myself trapped within. It doesn't cause me to hate you any less, Baressa assured. I do understand what you're going through. You'll wait for me to wander away. Convince yourself that you were lucky, that something distracted me. And then you'll rejoin your convoy as they continue looting supplies. You'll torture yourself with the knowledge that you should tell them you were bitten. You should let them crush your skull, because every moment from now on, you put the people around you in danger. But you'll rationalize. You'll tell yourself what you want to hear, and in the end you'll tell them nothing of what happened. You'll just keep on, infected, for as long as it takes for whatever it is that caused the dead to rise to sap you of your life. Maybe you'll last longer than I did. Maybe you'll manage to take one or two of your still living friends with you before they finally put you down like some mad, dangerous beast. Maybe. I have no idea. Because that's not my story. It's yours. By the time it happens, you'll be far from here. You'll have found a place you think you can fortify to sleep for the night, or you'll have moved on to the next town, and I'll stay behind to wait for the next group of survivors. It doesn't matter, though, that I won't see your story through to its end, because I know I've played my part, and played it well. I've brought you down to my level, made you like myself, and now there's no longer any reason to hate you. And it feels like a weight's been lifted from my shoulders. Not that my shoulders are in any shape to bear weight. I know you don't understand any of what I'm saying, even as I'm saying it to you. I don't really have vocal cords anymore, and my jaw doesn't work the way it once did. So all you're hearing is a series of low moans. Even if I could properly articulate my thoughts, I doubt that you, huddled in the bathroom, weeping as you are, would be paying enough attention to me to follow my line of thought. I understand that. I really do. It's just that the misconception that we hunger is something that's bugged me since the day I died. And I thought I had to point the mistake in the premise out to someone, even if that someone happens not to be listening. I wanted to tell you how I felt, even if you don't understand my point, which you don't. And that's okay, because soon you will.
Welcome back from the story, and I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know what hit me harder, the anger, the desperation, or the jealousy. We always assume they want to hurt us because they need something from us, that we have something they need. I mean, it is so much easier to believe the monstrous other, the other who scares us, who doesn't match our description of friend, hates us for what they can take from us. We never realize, we can't believe, can't understand that to someone else, someone without the advantages we have, advantages we don't even think of as advantages, that someone could hate us, seek our destruction, because they know we don't even know what we have. They wish they could be us. They might have been us, but something happened, or didn't happen. But either way, we have something they had, or wish they had, and they won't be happy until we fall. It's the age-old story. We like our heroes, but we also like it when they fall. Oedipus is a prime example. Here's a guy with everything in the world. He's got a lovely wife, got lovely daughters, head of a city, everything, man, riches, power, everything. But we, as the audience, won't be happy until his mother, wife hangs herself. His daughters are exiled, and he is blinded. We tell ourselves we are interested because he lived an affront to the gods. But the truth of the matter is that we want to see the mighty fall. We love to see those better than us in the dust. But we would love it so much better if we knew we had been the ones to pull them down. Usually we can't. But when we can do the unheard of thing and bring down the ladies and lords placed above us, we are, for the briefest moment, happy. Until the next Bieber or Macklemore or bearded duck dude or Kardashian comes along. Then we sharpen our knives and wait for the blood. For there is always more blood. Always. Next week, we are on to a new month, and a new month means a new theme. February is all about long-term resistance, the non-glamorous fight, the war in the shadows, or against nature, or the universe and all the bastages in it. We will be starting with the tale of a voyage of 2 centuries to a new world, a voyage where one man must lash himself to the rudder, lest they run aground. The story is Zeno's Arrow by our very own Colby Trax. That's me. The story was my first, and so far only, pro-paying sale, and it originally appeared in Redstone Science Fiction in May of 2011, where you can still read it online. So if you can't wait, head on over to Redstone Science Fiction and take a look. Now's the part of the show we all love. Yeah. Everyone knows, hopefully, that I pay the authors. Everyone who shows up on the show gets paid. And I would like to make it possible for you to say the same thing. For you to be able to say, I paid for that story. It's real easy. If you'd like to help me pay for a story or two, just hop on over to acmetales.com. We have conveniently located donate buttons with a variety of options for every price range. We are a token paying market, and a $10 donation will allow me to pay for one more story without cutting into my allowance too deeply. Who knows? If we get enough donations, I might be able to start paying $20 a story. Imagine that. Now, on other podcasts, you've heard people talk about, well, they have to pay for server costs and file hosting and all this crazy stuff. So why aren't we spending any money on that? The simple thing is we are taking advantage of our Creative Commons licenses and the fact that archive.org is more than happy to host podcasts which are made under Creative Commons licenses. So I, as Amce Tales, would love to thank archive.org for hosting our files. It's a wonderful, wonderful service they offer, providing access to the world, to everything public domain, or under Creative Commons share alike or 3.0, licenses like ours. So I couldn't afford to do this without archive.org, and I'd love to thank them. And I'm doing it one more time. Thank you, archive.org. And archive.org is also why I can use everything which comes in to pay our authors. No overhead. So come on in, be a patron of the arts, sponsor a story. It's easy, fun, and lets you off the hook for a good long while. Amce Tales is released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives License. Share it all you like, but please don't change it or sell it. If you like what you heard here, tell a friend. We always need more friends. If you'd like to chat, find out what I'm looking for in submissions, or comment on what you've heard here, look me up on Twitter at ColbyTracks, or send me an email at colbytracks@colbyjack.net. That's COLBYTRAX at colbyjack.net. This is Colby Tracks, signing off. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful week. And remember to always be fabulous.
Listening to audiobooks offers a unique blend of pleasure and utility. Whether you're commuting, exercising, or relaxing, audiobooks let you immerse yourself in stories and knowledge while multitasking. They make it easier to enjoy literature and learn new things, especially for those with busy lifestyles. Audiobooks bring characters and narratives to life through expressive narration, enriching the overall experience. If you love reading but don't always have time for a physical book, audiobooks are a great alternative. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for free audiobook.